Welcome to the Art of Plenty. I am Amy McInnes, and this is Tales from a Marriage Therapist Couch. You would think, as a marriage therapist, that I would be able to avoid a lot of the traps that people fall into in their relationships. You would think that I would be able to implement my own strategies into my own relationship. It's not always the case. It is not always the case that I can do what it is that I know I need to do to fix things, or I can't always implement the strategies that I know make a difference in an argument. And that is what today is all about, is how difficult relationships are and how much energy and effort it takes to do a good job in a relationship. I had a horrendous weekend of fighting. And it's not like it was even a big deal, the actual fight. But it ended up lasting because my husband and I were not able to repair it for some time after the argument. So I'm going to share this with you because I just want to normalize how difficult relationships are. And I want to normalize that even relationships that from the outside look really good and look like they're working doesn't mean that there isn't stuff going on, and doesn't mean that there isn't stuff that people are working through. We've all seen those posts on our socials feed where there's like a family photo or a picture of a couple, like, oh, we're celebrating this anniversary, or look at us, we're on holidays together. And then the next time you see a post from them, they've changed their last name and they're getting divorced or they've broken up. And there's nothing that would indicate that things weren't picture perfect up until, oh, they're not together anymore or they're getting divorced. And I get it. Like, nobody wants to air their dirty laundry on socials. That's not how we use social. Well, some people do, but a lot of people don't want to share that level of vulnerability, especially in the moment when they're going through it, because you kind of have to get your bearings. So at what point do you share? And so I get that, and I'm not arguing for us to post our dirty laundry on socials or for us to see how difficult things are, because that isn't helpful either. But I can't walk away from the reality that these relationships that we're in are hard, and they take a lot of effort and they take a lot of energy. And it matters if we know that other people are struggling, because it normalizes when we ourselves are struggling. If we know that, wow, this relationship, which is really solid or looks really solid, still has things that they have to work through. Because I guess that's the truth that I want people to know. As a marriage therapist, everybody's got stuff going on. And if somebody's been married for a long time, it means that they've figured out how to work it through. They've figured out how to work on things together and get to a place where their relationship works for them. It doesn't mean that it's not hard. It doesn't mean that they don't have epic battles or fights or any of those things. It just means that they found a way to work it through. And even when relationships look picture perfect, there are some of them that they look right from the outside, but they're not actually even interacting with each other. They're just kind of like two passing ships in the night, or acting more like roommates rather than a couple. There's so many different scenarios that are happening in people's homes, but I just want to normalize that just because something looks perfect doesn't mean that it is. And it doesn't mean that they're not working things through or working on things. Because if I know anything about marriage, it's that you always have to be working on it. And yeah, you can ride the tailwind from a really good year or from a few really good holidays, you can draw on that connection that you felt for a while. But if you're not continuing to work on it and continuing to invest in it, it just disintegrates over time. Here's the scenario that went down in our house. My husband had taken our oldest child to go skiing, and I was at home with the other kids. And due to the way the morning went, he ended up getting away later than he intended, which meant he was coming back later than he intended. And he was the one that was supposed to be taking our kid to the next activity, the younger one that was home. So he calls me to say, can you make sure the kid is ready to go? Because I'm going to be late and I need him ready so that he's not late for his activity. So what do I say? I say, yeah, sure. I can make sure he's ready. I got it. No problem. And I get off the phone. Well, do you know what I did? I opened the door because my son was outside with my other son, and I yelled at them. I said, hey, Dad's on his way, but he's running late. I need you, older brother, to help younger brother, and I need you to get ready to go so that when Dad gets here, you're ready. They give me the affirmative, like, yep, we got it, Mom. So I close the door and I go back to working on this thing that I'm doing for my other child, my daughter. Well, guess what? All trouble broke loose. They did not get ready. Older brother was not able to help. A fight went down and my younger son did not get ready. Now, he should have been able to get ready on his own. I just wanted the older son to help, but he didn't do that. So when my husband got home, he was not ready at all and he ended up being late and they all got flustered, and then he didn't have his helmet and I had to drive the helmet down so that he would be less late. So he ended up being about 15 minutes late for his activity, which isn't the end of the world. But my husband was not impressed with me. He was upset with me that I didn't do what I said I was going to do, which was I can get him ready. Now, maybe this is not a big deal. And maybe it is a big deal. You see, these are the types of things in a marriage that any other day of the week, it might not have been a big deal. And you can't necessarily predict how your partner is going to respond in the moment to the situation, because it does change. The situations of the day change how we respond or how we react, the things that we're thinking about, the things that are going into our mind. All of these create vulnerabilities and add to the way that we react to situations. So he was upset with me because I didn't do what I said I was going to do, which was get him ready. And in my mind, I did exactly what he wanted me to do. I passed that information on. And I can argue this point from either side. I can argue, yeah, I didn't follow through. You asked me and I didn't do it. Or I did it. I passed the information on and they're responsible enough. And any other day of the week when I would ask them to do that, they would be able to do this. The content doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is how the person was experiencing the situation and how they're feeling about it. And can you unpack what this is really about? Which is, he felt like I let him down. And I did let him down, but I didn't own it because I hold on to my perspective, to my standpoint with vigilance. I really struggle to let things go, and I really struggle to see other people's side, and I'm not very great at saying sorry. Like you would think as a marriage therapist that I would be good at all of those things. Seeing another person's perspective, validating their perspective, checking in with them, owning my mistakes, saying sorry, and repairing. And I can be good at those things, but I have to work at them and I have to stay committed to it. And for whatever reason, I didn't do that. I didn't do any of that. I just said, I'm not in the wrong. I did what I was supposed to do. And that's the situation. I didn't for one moment validate what his experience was in that situation. And you know what the funny thing is about all of this is I was upset that he could not see my side. And yet I did not see his side. Like, is that not the most twisted thing? Like, I felt like I was really deserving of him to see my side, yet I did not think that he deserved for me to see his. And I think that that is something that happens a lot in marriages, and I see it a lot in couples therapy where one person wants the other person to do something, but they won't return the favor. There's no assumption of similarity. They don't give what they want. They just want it rather than giving that. And that's what I was saying to my husband. Like, can you just see my side and validate that my side, that there's validity in how I'm looking at this situation? And his perspective was, but I don't actually agree with you. So I don't agree with you. And I kept saying, it doesn't matter if you agree with me. I want to know that you understand why I made the decision that I made, and that what I did has validity, even if you don't agree with it. Because we were never going to get to a position where we actually agreed with the other person. And I think that is one of the big things with couples is it's not about getting on the same page. It's not about agreement. It's not about resolution to conflict. It's about figuring out how to, when you're in a situation of conflict, be able to get closer together rather than further apart. This situation caused us to be further apart, and it pulled at us the entire time because we didn't have an opportunity, just with the way that our weekend was running, to really connect about it in a way that we could move forward. And we couldn't get past this point of that we had disagreeing opinions on the situation of what would have happened. And it actually took a bit of time to get to the place where we could actually validate where the other person was going, even though we didn't necessarily agree, and just allow ourselves to see where the other person was coming from and appreciate their perspective and know that they've heard ours, like that what they've heard the other person. So knowing that I was heard and him knowing that he was heard. I think a lot of times in conflict, we want a solution. We want to be able to solve it. And it just doesn't work that way. In fact, the stat that I'm most aware of from Gottman is that 69% of problems that couples have are perpetual. That means that they just keep resurfacing, that they don't resolve. And one of the issues that I get into in my marriage specifically that causes a lot of conflict is in a fight, in an argument, in a conflict, I do not want to let it go. I want to work at it and talk about it and dissect it and pull it apart and just keep coming around and unpacking it until it's dealt with. I do not want to let it go. I am relentless. I am like a dog to a bone. I just like want to pick and pick and pick until it's solved. I have a really, really difficult time just walking away and letting it go. And my husband is the complete opposite. He wants space. He wants a break. So if things get said and there's no resolution, then he just wants to leave until he feels better about the situation. And then he'll come back and then he's fine. He just wants space. And I know that because I've been married to him for a long time, because of my education in couples counseling and in counseling together, or just counseling in general, I know that if you are physiologically aroused in a fight, so you're angry, you're upset, you're heated, I know that it takes at least 20 minutes, and this is on average, some are a little bit longer, some are a little bit shorter, to actually calm down and be calm enough that you can talk. So I understand the benefit of taking a break. But there's usually guidelines related to that. So if you're in a fight and you notice that you're saying the same thing over and over again, like you just keep making the same point and you're not offering anything new, that's a clue that you're like, oh, I'm not thinking out of my creative part of my brain. I'm actually just running loops back here. And that's why this fight can't get any further ahead, because I just keep saying the same thing again. That is an indication of that physiological arousal and that a 20-minute break is needed. And when you take your 20-minute break, you cannot be thinking about the fight. Otherwise, it's not a break. It just maintains that arousal and that like fight or flight reaction to the situation. So I know that a break is good, but the break has to be a short time and the break has to be intentional. Like, I want to come back to this. Can we talk about this again when I'm not so upset? So I know that that's what makes the break okay. But you see, him getting a break isn't so much about the physiological arousal. It's about, I need time to heal. And for me, I heal in the moment in the conversation. Like, if we can fix this, I get the healing. And again, fixing it doesn't mean that we're on the same page and that we're in agreement. Fixing it means that through it we come together and we're closer. So those two things are often at odds. So he's wanting space, and if I don't get a sense of, well, how long is this space going to last, or what is the space going to look like if I don't know what the guidelines are, it just like eats at my soul, because I hate like, it's like probably one of my biggest pet peeves. I hate things being unresolved. I can't relax in the same way. I can't breathe because I'm just waiting for this thing. And I'm a firm believer that things have a way of being able, that you're able to work through things, and that there's a way to go through our problems and to go through our conflict in a way that actually builds the relationship up and draws the relationship closer. One of my big things that I often tell people in relationships, if you come to a place where somebody's hurt you and you choose not to talk about that hurt with them, the relationship can't go any further. You can't deepen the relationship if you're not willing to talk about what they hurt. It all of a sudden has to stay at that surface level, because what you've learned in that relationship is, if I'm hurt, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't trust this person with my hurt. So the relationship draws away from any situations that could create further hurt, because you know that you can't trust them with your hurt. Now, if a relationship, because that doesn't always happen early in a relationship where someone hurts you, and this applies to friendships or, partnerships or marriages, but if in the relationship someone hurts you and you go to them and you talk about the hurt, and they can hold that hurt and repair that along with you, then all of a sudden the relationship gets more intimate. The relationship gets closer, because you have learned, and the other person in the relationship has learned, that this is a person that I can trust with my hurt. And because you know that you can trust them with that level of hurt or that type of hurt, you feel safer in the relationship, which increases that sense of intimacy, because you know if something were to come up again and you were to express what's going on, or you to express that you're hurting or think that you're not okay, that relationship can move through that and can create healing, because there's evidence that you've done that before. So it creates a bigger sense of safety, which creates more intimacy, which is so beautiful. That's why it matters so much to be able to work through hurt and be able to talk through hurt. I've also learned from being married with Jody, who likes to take breaks and doesn't necessarily like to pull apart all of the hurt piece, that sometimes taking the break, what it does is it gives you perspective. So you can kind of remove yourself from the situation a little bit and then look back on the situation and be like, oh, that really wasn't that big of a deal. Or, oh, I kind of overreacted and I maybe didn't need to react in the same way. So that bit of distance can kind of give you perspective to work through those things. But that situation of Jody wanting space and me wanting no space has been something that we've had to figure out how to navigate over the years. And there are times when we definitely don't do that well, because he wants space to heal. And it's not even necessarily the resolution, but I've hurt his feelings and we've kind of resolved it, but he's still hurt. And so he wants space to heal. And I don't like any of the space, because for me, it feels like we're creating more. So how do you reconcile that when two people are different? Well, you just talk about it. That's what we do in therapy a lot, is we talk about, what is your perspective on this? How does this make you feel? And why does this matter? And then the other person who's listening to that expression gets to go back and repeat it. Say, oh, so summarizing it validates it. Because when you hear your partner summarize what you just said to them and validates it, even if they don't agree, you come away feeling like, oh, they actually get my perspective. And if they try and fail, meaning they validate it, but they didn't actually validate what you were saying, or they summarize it, but they miss the important part, you get an opportunity to correct them. And it's through that correction, and then they do it again, they validate again, or they summarize again. You get this real understanding, like, oh, they know me. So even though they don't agree with me, they understand how I'm feeling. And that gives us a real sense of safety in the relationship. So it took a really long time for me to get there after this last argument, for both of us to get there. And there's a part of me that definitely feels like, oh, this is hard to be vulnerable about. This is hard to share about, because as a therapist, I should definitely just do these things naturally. I shouldn't have to work so hard to be good at relationships. But that isn't always the case. And I was talking with a social media account manager, and she was saying that 2025 is all about authenticity. It's all about being real on socials. It's all about being authentic. And I feel like that isn't a new trend by any means. But my heart in sharing this piece that was really difficult for me, this argument, is to encourage you that even marriage therapists don't always get marriage right. And that even people who know the strategies for how to repair breaches still do things that, first of all, damage the relationship and create situations that make it hard or slow to repair. And quite frankly, that's just a part of being in a relationship. And it is possible to work these things through. And there is so much great help out there for people that know how to do things. So if you're struggling in your relationship and your socials isn't showing it, and your friends don't even know, reach out, because you're not alone. There are plenty of us who are struggling and trying to figure it out. And I will say this, if your marriage is breaking down and you feel like you need help, talk to friends that are still married, because it makes a difference. If you talk to your divorced friends, they're going to give you a different perspective on marriage and working things through than if you talk to your friends who are married. There's actually research and stats about this. And it's the same thing if you're choosing a marriage therapist. Choose a marriage therapist who wants to see your marriage work, who is for the relationship, because not all marriage therapists are like that. Some marriage therapists work from the perspective of what is best for this individual and what is best for that individual, not what is best for this relationship. And so not all marriage therapists will be working towards saving the marriage. Some don't take that viewpoint at all. So if that is what you're trying to do, find a marriage therapist that is for marriage and talk to friends that understand that you're wanting to stay married versus wanting a way out. If this is speaking to you, I'd love to hear from you. I never really know about when I share these personal stories, if these are things that hit home for you. But I do want to make a difference, and it matters to me that it matters to me that it makes a difference for you, because that is why I do this. I share stories from my own life to try to enrich your life, because there's so much out there that we can learn and gain to be who we're meant to be. And that's what the Art of Plenty is all about. So thank you for tuning in today. And if you need help, please get help. This story today was just entertainment. It's not meant to replace professional help. If you need professional help, it's really wonderful to have someone that can speak directly into your own life and understand your personal experiences, because not everybody's experiences are the same, and those impact what types of things to implement in order to make change. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Amy McInnes, and this is The Art of Plenty.